Hey, I'm George Ruggiero,
And I'm John Finnegan.
and this is the G and Finn Show, giving you up-to-date info on Ole Miss sports and more from around the country.
Catch us Mondays at noon and Fridays at 6 on 92.1 FM, Rebel Radio. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the G and Finn Show. Welcome back to the G and Finn Show. We're going to come at you this wonderful Monday afternoon in Oxford, Mississippi, with a recap of all the games last week and a little bit of previews of the midweek action. So what we're going to be talking about first, Ole Miss Cal. We both had some takes on how the game was going to wind up. We were both wrong. But, George, what are your biggest takeaways from the game?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway that, of course, everybody's going to ask us about or ask anybody about at this point in time was the officiating, just in general, and especially on those last two plays there. What did you think of the officiating just as a whole throughout the game?
I didn't have too much of a problem with it overall. I know it was a Pac-12 crew, which generally they'll try to get an independent crew, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think with this case, it was part of the agreement that the away team would provide the officiating crew because we had SEC referees at the Cal game 2 years ago.
Okay, so that seems fair enough. And then as far as other non-cons around the SEC, everyone had an SEC crew with the exception of Georgia Notre Dame. Georgia Notre Dame was an ACC crew?
I think it was ACC, yeah.
So, 28-20, Cal comes away with the win. John Rice Plumlee gives Ole Miss a chance late, brings it to a one-score game with not too much time left. And, last play of the game, we're going to need to talk about it at some point, so let's get that out of the way quick.
Yeah.
Caught the ball across the plane. From the one angle they showed on TV, it didn't look like it, but you have to imagine one of the referees had a better idea, either a pylon cam or just one of the other angles they didn't show on TV. But that looked like something that had to be reviewed to me. There's a reason the replay system exists. Do I think he was in? Yes, I do. But I'm also not a college football referee. I think the inexcusable portion isn't marking it short of a first down. The inexcusable part of that call to me is not giving it to review. That's something you call a touchdown on the field, and if you realize you were wrong, you reverse it, and you start the clock again when you give the team the ball back. They forced Ole Miss to get another play off, and they did not have a play call for their backup, true freshman quarterback for running clock with less than 10 seconds left in the game and needing a touchdown. The way I've been getting through this, that's a heartbreaking loss, but I'm just pretending we got the touchdown and then just trying to push the pile was us failing to get a 2-point. That's how I've been justifying this in my head.
That's plenty fair. The Pac-12 actually, late last night, the league itself, the Pac-12, stuck by their officiating crew, which, I completely understand that. They don't want to, kill anybody's credibility. That's perfectly fair enough. And I did a little bit of a deep dive myself on it. I was very curious to see what the rulebook actually said. Now, gotta love the NCAA, a non-profit organization, might I add, charges $10 to look at the current rulebook. I decided not to do that, so I found an older rulebook, and I just cross-referenced some rule changes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that hasn't changed very much in the past few years. That call, that rule has not gone anywhere.
No, exactly. That's what I was just getting to. The instant replay rule has stayed fairly consistent. So the replay official, in this case, must have enough time before a new snap and sufficient evidence to stop the clock and call for the use of instant replay, keeping in mind there is no requirement for the use of instant replay. So that time just wasn't allowed. Both the Ole Miss team, as you saw him mark it down on the 1 yard line, the Ole Miss team, they were, trying to get that ball back to the center just to get another play snapped because they thought, we've got to get this in.
Yeah, you don't want
we've got to get another call.
LSU in that same end zone.
Exactly. So that play was reviewable. All passing plays are reviewable. All of them. However, that's only in the case that the replay official has the requirements of they have enough time before a new snap and sufficient evidence. According to the Pac-12, there was no irrefutable evidence that they saw requiring the crew to stop the game and review that play. So, I know this. The referees aren't going to put themselves in a bad spot like that because if the referee's on the field call that play dead and kill the clock,
which, to be fair, they did. They did say, no, he wasn't in, and they went to get the ball back to give it back.
And they hustled. I'll give them that. I'll give them credit where credit's due. You know, they hustled. They gave Ole Miss the opportunity to get another snap. But the thing is for them to, if they were to stop the clock completely and review that play on the field, that's a judgment call. You know, I can't expect any refereeing crew or official to put themselves in a bad spot like that and say, stop, guys, we need to take a look at this, when they don't have the buzz down from the replay official.
Just let the boys play, even if maybe we should have let them review it.
Exactly.
So I think that's all we can really say about that call at the end of the game. As far as the rest of the game for Ole Miss, outside of the last 30 seconds, Matt Corral came out of the game with shortness of breath, and did they say bruised ribs or just his ribs were hurting him? Is that what they said on the field?
So on the field, they just said that he had a rib injury, an upper body injury. Nothing was really defined up until just earlier this afternoon. That was actually breaking as of, I think, maybe 45 minutes ago. It was confirmed that Matt Corral has bruised ribs. Luckily, there's nothing broken. If there was a breakage there, he likely would have been out for multiple weeks. However, right now he's just listed as day-to-day.
So we'll see how he plays, but it looks like we've got at least a capable freshman quarterback in John Rhys Plumlee. I don't want to make too many assumptions too soon with this guy. I mean, you see it all the time. Whenever a backup quarterback comes in who's got a moderate amount of skill, the other team didn't game plan for that. The situation has changed. You're not playing the same kind of football with Matt Corral at the beginning of the game as you are with John Rhys Plumlee in a 2-minute drill with the game on the line. It's going to be a completely different brand of football. It takes teams time to adjust to that. You gotta, you're putting your guy in a position to succeed when you say, hey, we need you to get in there, but, they're not expecting a quarterback like John Rhys Plumlee at that point in the game. People were saying on some message boards, is there going to be a quarterback controversy at Ole Miss? I don't think so. I think Matt Corral had some struggles, but I think he's our guy. I think we're going to stick with him. I'm glad we've got what looks like a capable backup in John Rhys Plumlee, and I see a lot of promise in him for the future. But I don't see a quarterback controversy unless it comes back that, we were wrong. Corral did break a couple ribs. I think Corral's still our guy. I think we stick with him.
I mean, that's the thing. With a young team like this that's so green, you really have to let the quarterback, especially the quarterback. If it was any other position, I would be much more confident in saying, yes, get another player in there. It's next man up. But this is the quarterback of the team you're talking about. It's completely different. The level of communication, the level of preparation that they do with other positions on the field. But thinking of, the running backs, the wide receivers, and especially the offensive line.
You want to be able to plug and play in those skill positions, but at quarterback, and it's not like Matt Corral is a senior who's been playing okay all throughout college, may or may not get drafted. No, he's a young guy. He's got, 6 career starts now?
It's not a lot, and that's part of it.
So you got to give the kid time to get up to speed. You can't expect him to play like anything other than his age. You know what? I think he's got what it takes. He's got the measurables. He's got the swagger that being an SEC West quarterback requires. And I like that confidence. I think the team rallies around that kind of thing. So I think Matt Corral's still our guy. We're going to give him time to develop. He looks promising. He didn't look great. Statistically looked good somewhat, but I don't have those statistics in front of me. But a couple underthrows, a couple overthrows. He did look lost at times. But you know what? Cal was looking good. Cal's defense was looking very good. Evan Weaver was exactly what we expected of him. 22 tackles, 11 of those just by himself. He continues to lead the team in tackles by what feels like a factor of 10.
I mean, just for reference, his 11 solo tackles, Evan Weaver's 11 solo tackles is the same amount that Ole Miss's top tackler had total, including half tackles.
Across 3 games.
No, just for this game.
Oh my gosh.
Just for this game. So Henry had the most tackles for Ole Miss's defense, and he had 11 total tackles. Evan Weaver had 11 solo tackles. That's by himself. And to go with it, he had a half sack, half a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hurries. And I mean, there were just some plays out there that he looked like a man amongst boys.
He really did. He was in a class of his own. I don't see anyone on the Ole Miss defense who's stepping up and making plays to that same degree. I mean, he almost feels like a borderline game-breaking player. And I want to say, is he a junior this year?
No, he's a senior.
He's a senior this year.
He is a senior. I 100% see him going into the combine,
I
going
think we're
into
going
the
to start.
draft.
I completely agree. I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about this kid come March. So don't forget that name.
Don't forget that name. Don't
if
let
your
it go.
pro team wants somebody in that secondary.
No doubt. I mean, just the most interesting thing about him, and just what I noticed a lot about how he plays. If I had to compare a comparable player, like a former NFL player, I'd say Brian Urlacher. Just his size, his physicality, and what really stuck out to me is his patience. I mean, there were plenty of plays where you expect a linebacker, oh, this is obviously a linebacker blitz, something like that. He just didn't.
No, but
he just stood there and waited for the play to develop around him, and then he reacted.
Yeah, he wouldn't blitz in. This isn't a guy that gets a lot of sacks, and it's not necessarily someone you want to get a lot of sacks if he's on your team. You want him to strafe across his line, be that second line of defense, and the second he sees someone breaking through a gap, he's going to close on them, and he's going to take them down. He's a sure tackler. Outside of that, I think probably the biggest issue I saw with Ole Miss was our third down efficiency and what we allowed Cal to get on third down. They converted on over 50% of those. Average yards to go was 8.7, which is long.
Yeah,
but
that's
we were
a long
giving it to
third
them.
down, and they were getting it. And it wasn't only, their run game was not efficient. They did not have a good run game this weekend. It was all through the air. I mean, we said it on Friday. Before this week, we did not think Chase Garbers was a strong quarterback. And he proved us wrong. Ole Miss took away the run for the most part and pretty much said, Garbers, you have to beat us over the air. And he did.
And we expected that. We expected both teams to make you beat them deep, and Cal succeeded at that. We said, I dare you, throw it over me, and they took that, and they took it to the house a couple times.
I mean, that's the thing. For a player that, up until this point was averaging, if not mistaken, it was his average completion percentage was just above 50.
Not
this
exceptional.
No, that's not good by any stretch of the imagination. But for this game, keeping in mind he left the game for a couple series because he got injured. It looked like back spasms to me, but I'm not 100% sure. He was 23 of 35, 357 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Now, that pick was not it was not a well-thrown ball. It was wildly underthrown over the middle into man coverage. And I mean, the defensive back,
they still have to make a play, but you don't want to be putting the opposing defense in a position where they're able to make a play like that.
No, he made a great play. It was a strong interception by Prince. I mean, he read the eyes of the quarterback. Garbers was just looking downfield like that the entire time, and you could see that kind of ball coming, but nonetheless, Ole Miss, Mike McIntyre took away the run. I mean, look at this. For a team that really leans on their runs, Cal planned for this. Cal only ran the ball 33 times and only picked up 60 yards. That doesn't matter as much when off the other side of the ball, they picked up 373 yards in the air.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do at a certain point. Beyond that, my only other takeaway from the Ole Miss Cal game, I didn't love Matt Luke's play calling, and I absolutely despise his clock management. I'm better at clock management in Madden. You can't be burning timeouts that early when it could have been the difference in the game, and being able to call your 100% play from 1 yard out. Every team has those. Every team practices those. We didn't have an opportunity to get it off. I don't know if it was because Plumlee never practiced it or just because they didn't have time and they said, hey, we're going to push the pile, and that's our best bet. You can't be wasting timeouts too early like that. Beyond that, I don't want to talk about Ole Miss coaching going forward. I think this campus lacks a little too much leadership at chancellor and athletic director for any real decisions to be made anytime soon.
I agree.
So I think it's a little premature to start talking about that. But a quick note, Luke Logan didn't look fantastic, missed 2 field goals. I did not like the call to kick that first field goal. Not exceptionally long field goals either. These are ones
they were chip shots for the most part. And are you referencing the field goal that was I think it was 4th and 12? It was deep in the red zone.
Yeah, that was the one. I mean, the play calling at that level, I don't know if I would have gone for the field goal at that point. I really couldn't make my mind up what I would have done in that situation, but you need to be calling plays that do not put you in that situation. That was inexcusable to come away from a 1st and goal with 0 points.
That's the thing.
Without a turnover.
Exactly. There was no turnover. It was just a simple change of possession. And that's the thing. I don't hate the call for the field goal there.
But when your kicker's struggling, you got to make sure you're not putting him in a position where you need him to be your guy for that.
And thing is, he hadn't struggled he struggled-ish the last game, against Sela. He put up he only missed one field goal. He didn't miss any of his extra points. Actually, excuse me, he did miss one extra point in that game. Pardon me. But it's one of those things to where I can completely understand why on a 4th and 12 situation, you don't want to have to give up possession simply because it's 4th down, and you didn't get the yardage.
No, I'm completely with you. Beyond that, where's Ole Miss going from here? I personally feel that the season's dead in the water. I saw our path to a bowl game being Memphis, Arkansas, Sela, Cal, Vandy, and New Mexico State. I saw our 6 wins there. I thought it was okay to drop one to either Memphis or Cal if we surprise one, but because, we could surprise somebody like Missouri. I'm lower on this year than I was at the beginning of the season, just for an example, but I don't see 4 more wins on the schedule. I see us going 4-8. I think we will beat Vanderbilt. I think we will beat New Mexico State, and I don't see much else on the schedule. I think 5-7 is optimistic at this point, and that's really all I can see. I'm completely in agreement with you. And thing is, even now, even looking at last game, or this week, excuse me, pardon me. Look at Vandy. Look at what Vandy did. Vandy put up 38 against LSU. Sure, they don't have the same defense that they usually do. And it's a good LSU team.
That's a good LSU team. But the thing is, I know that LSU doesn't have the same defense that they have in years past.
They're not acting like a normal LSU. They've got a much better offense and quarterback and a much worse defense than in years
exactly.
past. But it's working for them so
far. It is working for them. But for a team like Vanderbilt to put up almost 40 points on them, how do you think that they'll fare against an Ole Miss defense that I would venture to say is considerably worse?
You dare say Ole Miss defense is worse than LSU's?
Yes.
I think we'll see. I'm just messing with you.
I know, but still,
I think we'll see how this Ole Miss defense starts looking against much more high-powered offenses. I think the defense looks good so far. I think it looks very good so far. But consider that probably the best team we played, Cal, didn't look fantastic. We just looked significantly worse. But at the end of the day, the Pac-12's playoff hopes remain vaguely alive. Cal up to 15 from 23, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't see why.
There were just other teams that dropped, in my opinion.
Okay, is that what you think it was?
Utah dropped, Washington dropped.
I got that pick right.
Oh, the Utah dropped? Yeah, I know I didn't. But the thing is, there were just a couple other drops in the top 10 and in the top 15 that happened throughout the weekend that really affected it. But I think we've talked enough about
this past Saturday.
There was some other, some other sad news over the weekend. Former Ole Miss quarterback Jevin Sneed
passed away at 32 in Austin, Texas. Police are still investigating. We will not be speculating about this, but our prayers go out to his family, friends, loved ones, and it's just a tragedy. You can feel it on the Oxford campus today. And a lot of big Ole Miss fans now, some of their first memories of Ole Miss came with him at the helm. Mm-hmm. So our hearts break for him and his family. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be back at you with some more NFL news and college football from the past weekend.
Welcome back, everybody, to the G and Finn Show. We're about to just hop straight in with some other college football talk. We're going to start in conference. Auburn goes to College Station and gets the win, 28-20. Big storyline for Auburn has been their quarterback, the young quarterback, I should say, Bo Nix, to start the season, has been really good. For this game, he went 12 of 20, 100 yards and a touchdown. That's not incredible by any stretch of the imagination, but it was Auburn's run game that they established early and frequently that really got them the win against a strong A&M team, especially for this game to be in College Station. That's a hard place to play. Probably one of the better home field advantages in the country, and Auburn just went in there and got it done.
And I don't believe Auburn has lost to A&M in College Station since they joined the conference. I believe. Auburn's got 3 wins in a row against A&M. Probably another game, early game that I'd like to talk about a bit. Michigan, Wisconsin. I thought Michigan could pull something out here, and looking back, I don't know why I believe that. I've never been a big believer in Jim Harbaugh, but I think this game was, if losing to Ohio State so many years in a row wasn't already for Michigan fans and Michigan supporters and students, I think the Jim Harbaugh era may be on its way out. He's a good football coach. He's not the football coach he used to be. We talked about this last week. Got embarrassed by Wisconsin in Wisconsin, 35-14. And I think what was most eye-opening to me is Jim Harbaugh was soundly beat playing his brand of football. He played the kind of football Jim Harbaugh likes to play, and Wisconsin did a significantly better job of it. Down in Athens, Georgia, probably the premier matchup of last Saturday, Notre Dame traveled to Georgia.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I really expected this game to be a lot worse off for Notre Dame. They ended up just losing by 6, 23-17. Neither quarterback necessarily played a realistically strong game. Book for Notre Dame put up 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he also turned over the ball twice through the air, the 2 interceptions. Jake Fromm, arguably one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC to this point. He only had 187 yards and 1 passing touchdown. Most of Georgia's points, 7 of them came on the ground from Swift, who, he's incredible.
He's a game changer.
He really is. And then, honestly, just one of my favorite players from the last couple of years, especially in the SEC, is their kicker.
Rodrigo Blankenship.
Blankenship with the rec specs on.
Close friend of Quavo of Migos.
Yeah. I mean, 3 for 3 from the field, 43-yarder, and both extra points. I mean, he's automatic.
In his 4th year at Georgia, and he's played exceptionally, including a lot of big-time kicks.
Oh, yeah.
Just exceptional kicker. And he's a fun player to watch. He really is. I mean, friends with Migos, that's cool. And in his 4th year at Georgia, he's pursuing a graduate degree already. He's already in his master's program. I don't think that game was quite as close as the score indicates. I didn't see, as close as the game was by the end, I didn't see Notre Dame showing too much promise that they'd come back. But the Irish traveled well to Sanford Stadium in Athens. And you know what? That had to be a fun series. Even if you're a Notre Dame fan, it's cool to have a couple top 10 matchups like that, especially at a conference. And then probably my game of the weekend, which I didn't expect a massive amount from, UCLA came back over the last 22 minutes of the game, 32-point comeback against Washington State. It was 49-17 with about 7 minutes left in the third quarter. Final score 67-63. Wazoo threw 9 touchdowns. Their quarterback, Anthony Gordon, with 570 yards in the air. 66% completion rate. Yeah, he threw 2 picks, but he threw 9 touchdowns. You can't blame him for something like that. That was an exceptional performance by the quarterback, even despite his turnovers. This was almost reminiscent of Josh Rosen's comeback against A&M in the 2017 season. It was fun to watch. It ended at about 2 a.m. Central, but I'm glad I stayed up.
It was just a fun game from start to finish. You should expect that from any game with coaching, like a coaching matchup like Mike Leach and Chip Kelly. I'll be honest, I've been very down on Chip Kelly as of late, but a 32-point comeback. You can't say anything truly negative about that.
No,
from UCLA's
it was just a heck of a game. I think that's all we've got on college football for this past weekend, so we're going to move it over to the NFL and see what happened on Sunday. Our quick Antonio Brown tidbit, he tweeted that he won't play in the NFL again. That kind of reminds me of, you can't fire me, I quit. I don't know if anyone would have picked him up. And actually just broke earlier today. He's going to classes at CMU again. He re-enrolled in college. So,
good for him. But
get your degree, but...
Yeah, no, I'm glad that we don't really have to talk about him much anymore, hopefully.
Yeah, so I think that's all we got on him.
Yeah.
Already gave up on $40 million in the past couple weeks. Around the horn, Giants came back behind starter Daniel Jones, 2 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns, including the game winner. I think that kid's got it. I was low on him, and I was laughing with everybody else when they took him 6th overall. But came back, beat Tampa Bay 32-31. And one of our NFL revs, Evan Ingram, had a great day, 6 for 8, 113 yards and a touchdown. More touchdowns than he ever had at Ole Miss. Somebody said the only thing that could stop not Evan Ingram. I apologize. That was Dawson Knox I was thinking of for a moment there. But Ingram looked great. one of the leading receivers on the team.
Oh, yeah.
And heck of a touchdown, too.
I mean, it was a great run, down that left sideline. I mean, I also want to chime in on the Daniel Jones situation. If you know me, I was talking all kinds of smack about Daniel Jones leading into the draft, and then after he was drafted by the Giants. I do think it's a little bit too early to truly, crown him the king of New York, but at the same time, I mean, he just looked fantastic.
He looked as good as you could expect a rookie quarterback in his first start.
Exactly. And the thing is, my main comparison or my main qualm with the Giants drafting him was the fact that they were leaving someone like Dwayne Haskins on the table, and he hasn't really had the opportunity to show what he's got at the NFL level just yet, nor do I think he's ready. He looked fantastic with Ohio State in his senior year, Haskins this is. But, quarterbacks are a weird breed. It always takes time, and it always takes a different amount of time or that special sauce or something to really get them to, hit their potential.
And there's so much you can do for a quarterback, whether it's building your offensive line like the Colts failed to do, leading to Luck's retirement, giving them weapons so they've got someone to throw to. That's where I think the Giants have struggled is, other than dumping it off to Saquon, they don't have too much other than a solid tight end in Evan Ingram. But you know what? For the time being, Daniel Jones looks like he showed flashes of brilliance. Beyond that game.
And speaking of Saquon Barkley, he left the game with an ankle injury. Turns out to be a high ankle sprain. Yes,
and I think people are expecting 4 to 5 weeks.
That's what I would expect. I mean, when you see him immediately on crutches in a boot, that's something that's immediately wrong. There's some swelling right away on a play like that.
So multi-weeks, but not a season ender. But that'll hurt the Giants.
It'll definitely hurt the Giants, especially. So the thing is with Daniel Jones coming in and playing as well as he did, that really could impart some hope on. Look at that division. I mean, that division just beats itself up every single year. It's that simple. So that division will just keep on fighting and beating itself up. And with Daniel Jones coming in and playing as well as he did, I really would have given the Giants more of a chance in the division, maybe even going for a wild card, if they had Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I think I could have seen that team competing with an exceptional weapon in the backfield like Barkley.
Not anymore.
They won't have that for the next few weeks. The next few weeks aren't looking great for the Giants. But game ended. Tampa Bay missed a 34-yard, I want to say.
It was not a very long field goal by any means.
Attempting to take a 2-point lead at the very end of the game. Sunday Night Football.
It was a tighter game than I expected in Cleveland. The Rams take the win. I expected that to happen. The Rams take it 20-13. It really wasn't convincing by either team. Now, you don't expect that to be a convincing victory for the Cleveland Browns, especially with the point that they're at now. I mean, we always say Brown's going to Brown. Cooper Kupp, I think, really showed why he's so important to this Rams team. He had 2 touchdowns. He performed well as their safety blanket. And I really have to think, if he doesn't go down last season, how does that team play down the stretch and in the playoffs? Yeah. It's a completely different offensive dynamic for them. Sure, Aaron Donald is arguably the best player in football. He's definitely the best defensive player in football, but really, a defensive tackle can only get you so far.
No, and they'll elevate the rest of your line. They'll make the life a lot easier for your edge rushers and your linebackers, but if you're going to have an exceptional player, I mean, he feels like a cheat code, but there's only so much you can do from right there. I didn't love that game. I watched it. I didn't see anything too exciting, but, I mean, it was Sunday Night Football. It wasn't anything crazy.
No. I mean, Jared Goff, I thought, was, not good.
He was Jared Goff.
That's the thing. Jared Goff, to me, is 100% a product of Sean McVay. Sean McVay just brings so much to the table as an offensive mind and as a head coach. He's really formed and shaped Jared Goff. The only thing that Jared Goff now needs to do is to go out there and execute. And, I mean, if you're throwing 2 picks a game, a lot of the times that's not going to get it done.
Yeah. Beyond that, Saints go into Seattle behind Teddy Bridgewater, come out with the W, 33-27. Teddy looked good for the Saints, but more of a game manager. I'm a big fan of the guy. I'd love to see him succeed. DK, one of our NFL boys, he was all right. 2 for 6. Couple of the balls were overthrown. A couple he probably should have come down with.
Yeah.
So just 2 for 6 receptions, but he did get 67 yards out of the 2, and he looked like that man can run in a straight line like nobody else.
Oh yeah.
But that 3-cone drill.
But the big early game of the weekend.
That was my favorite game of the weekend.
It was
by the way.
fantastic. Kansas City takes a win against Baltimore, 33-28. That's only a 5-point game between what's been two of the most electric teams in football this year. And I mean, just think about this: Baltimore, 28 points. That's 4 touchdowns.
All on the ground.
All of them were on the ground. 3 of them. Mark Ingram had a hat trick essentially. And I mean, looking at how the Saints are playing now and looking at how the Saints are functioning without Drew Brees, did they make a mistake in letting him walk?
Yeah. If I'm the Saints, that game stung. That game really stung just for that reason alone. Just see you want to see your guy succeed. I don't think there was any bad blood between him and the team. Just it's football's a business. I think that was a business decision more than anything else. But when you see someone playing like that, you kind of wish you could have made things work. Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. Watkins was Watkins. And you know what? That was probably the best game of the day for me to watch.
I definitely think so. I mean, there were a couple other tight games over the weekend. Texans and Chargers was a good game. 27-20, that's only a 1-touchdown game. And I think one of the other tighter games that actually will, have an impact late in the season, no one expected this really, is the Lions bringing it to the Eagles.
Undefeated Detroit Lions. The undefeated Detroit Lions.
Yes, keep that in mind. A team that had so little expectations simply because they don't have that much in terms of skill position apart from Matt Stafford, what's new? Keep that in mind. What's new? That they don't have skill position players apart from, their quarterback. Now, on the ground, there are a couple names that we'll recognize. Kerryon Johnson is their starting running back. Played at Auburn, if not mistaken. Great running back in the SEC. And then apart from that, their wide receivers are, big name guys.
Yeah, I mean Marvin Jones Jr.,
Amendola.
Yeah, and Kenny Galladay. All brand names people recognize.
But they're never your guy.
It feels like they're a team with 3 very good number 2 wide receivers.
Exactly. I mean,
and no true number 1. Beyond that, we got one more NFL Rebel that I don't think we've had a chance to talk about. Dawson Knox with the Bills, the undefeated Buffalo Bills.
Keep that in mind. Good Lord.
Have beat some pretty bad teams so far, but at the end of the day, they're 3-0. Dawson Knox looked great. 3 of 4 targets, 67 yards, and a touchdown. More touchdowns than he had in his Ole Miss career. It is week 3. Stiff-armed a couple guys. It was beautiful to watch. And honestly, on a couple of those runs after the catch, I mean, he looked like a true tight end out there, but it felt like the only person who could stop him was Phil Longo. And upcoming in Monday Night Football, the Bears travel to Washington to play the Redskins. I don't have the spread in front of me, but
I do. It's 5.5 Chicago.
That seems low. That feels low.
It feels low, but keep in mind that the Bears are going into Maryland for this game.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, sure, you got that little bit of home field advantage in Landover, Maryland. But again, I'm not expecting much out of this matchup. I don't see much right now for the Redskins that interests me. They don't look good. Their starting quarterback is Case Keenum.
That's all you can say about that team. I think
it really
from that point on, anything else you'd expect from a team that has him as the starter. I mean, it's just the dysfunctionality of the ownership and management. That would be a really tough team to root for, and not just because of the on-field product you're seeing, but because of the way they treat their players, just whether it's covering up injuries, conspiracies with the team doctors to make guys seem like they're healthier than they should be. But in a little more offbeat football news, nothing exceptionally exciting from the NFL off the field other than the mascot of Washington State, Gardner Minshew's alma mater, wearing jorts and a tank top, much like their boy.
I mean,
that kid is
Gardner Minshew was at that game.
Yeah, he was at the game. They took a picture together.
Jorts.
Who wore it better? I really couldn't tell you. Cut him off himself. That's
a move right there.
That is a pure Jacksonville quarterback right there. But in some offbeat news from around the horn football, Rutgers University planning on using all the funds from their alcohol sales to fund a buyout for their coach. And that feels...
Is that actually a thing?
That's the thing. That's a genuine thing.
Wow.
And
That's...
surprisingly, 2 interesting stories coming out of Rutgers, which isn't a sentence I ever thought I'd say in my life. But celebrating a touchdown, one of their offensive linemen went to dap up their quarterback after he threw one, wound up just punching him in the helmet. He had to stay out for a couple plays.
Oh, no.
Pitt took down UCF.
Oh, that was... Yeah, I forgot about that game almost. That was a weird one. Like, I think weird is the only way I can accurately describe that game.
Any game where Pittsburgh plays a ranked team, you should be worried, and you should take Pitt to cover, if not win outright. They are... If it makes you feel any better, UCF fans, that didn't impact your playoff chances. But, that was a fun game. The ending was exciting. Go watch the highlights if you haven't already.
It really was a great game. And, I mean, thing is, for UCF to pull out a comeback like they did, I mean, that's the thing. Pitt was leading at one point 21-0. UCF storms back.
Yeah.
Gets up 31-21.
And they
end up losing.
And they started making them kick field goals. I mean, after going up 21-0, 5 touchdowns for Pitt and a touchdown and 2 field goals, both on near red zone trips for UCF. So that was an exciting one to watch. And Pitt's uniforms remain pretty nice. That UCLA-Washington State game we talked about, but, I mean, off the field, a couple more quick fun things. Grocery store in Athens, Georgia, removed all the Irish Spring soap from their shelves ahead of their game against Notre Dame.
Oh,
so,
wow.
That was beautiful in a way. And probably one of the most painful things for Michigan after this past weekend, with their loss to Wisconsin, the highest all-time winning percentage of any FBS program is now held by Boise State at 72.99%.
Keeping in mind, Boise State, we talked about them a little bit last week, saying that they were going to have arguably a tough time against Air Force. Just manhandled them, 30-19. Boise State is a weird case for me because they always seem to have at least a decent to a good team. They always seem ranked kind of low in the standings or low in the top 25.
But they can surprise you and come out of nowhere every once in a while.
Oh yeah.
And probably my favorite story from the weekend on the matchup in Ames, Iowa State. There was a fan holding a send beer money sign and his Venmo QR code. Got about $40,000 in donations through there. Decided he would donate it to his rival, the Children's Hospital, where they do the wave. He decided to donate it to the rival's hospital, and Anheuser-Busch, the kid was asking for Busch Light, so Anheuser-Busch, as well as Venmo, agreed to match the donations, and the total has crossed $400,000.
Good Lord.
So, that's...
Ideas,
at the end of the day,
ideas. Come on, Ole Miss. We need something like this.
For a 3-hour lightning-delayed game, at least something good came out of it. So I think that's all we're going to have for you this Monday. George, you got anything else you want to leave them on?
No. I just want to, of course, thank everybody for tuning in. This has been the G and Finn Show on 92.1 FM Rebel Radio.
And we will see you back here, same place, 6 o'clock on Friday.